In Norse cosmology, in the beginning of time, there were two worlds. Muspelheim, a world of fire, and Niflheim, a world of ice. In between them was a vast emptiness called Ginnunga Gap. Over time, these two worlds affected each other until the first being in the world, Ymir, emerged. Ymir was a frost giant. Ymir created a cow named Audumla. Nobody really knows why. Audumla found a rock and started licking it. From that rock emerged Buri and Bura, the first two of the gods. They had three sons, Odin, Vili, and Vi. Odin was the most important of the three. He's the one that we're going to talk the most about. Odin had lots of cool things. He had a magical spear called Gungnir. He poked his own eye out so he could look into the well of wisdom in order to see all the secrets of the world. He had two ravens called Thought and Memory that circled the world every day and told him all the secrets of the world. Odin decided to kill Ymir. And from Ymir's corpse, Odin created the world. In Norse cosmology, the world was divided into 9 different realms. You're going to want to keep track of the number 9. It was a sacred number for the Norse. All 9 of the realms were centered on the world tree Yggdrasil. At the top of Yggdrasil was Asgard. That was the home of the Aesir, who were one group of gods. On the other side was Vanaheim. That was the realm of the other gods. Alfheim was the third world that was on the top of the tree. That was the home of the light elves. Moving down the tree, we have Midgard, which is the home of humans. Nidavellir, which is home of the dwarves. And Jotunheim, which is home of the frost giants. At the roots of the tree, we had Muspelheim, that same world of fire. Niflheim, which became their version of the underworld. And Svartalheim, which is home of the dark elves, or kind of the dark fairies that try to play tricks on people. In addition to Odin, some of the other important Norse gods are Thor. You might be familiar with this guy from the recent motion picture franchise. Thor had a magical hammer called Mjolnir. Mjolnir had the ability to return to its owner whenever it was thrown. Thor also had a chariot that was pulled by 2 goats. Every night he would eat the goats, wave his hammer over them, and the goats would miraculously regrow the next day, and then he'd eat them again the next night. Pretty neat if you ask me. One god who's kind of weird is Loki. That's this feller here. We're not sure exactly where Loki came from. Some sources say he was a giant. Some sources say he was actually a son of Odin. Regardless, Loki and Odin became blood brothers. They cut their wrists and exchanged blood to become brothers. So Odin felt like he had this special bond with Loki. Loki liked to play mischief on all the other gods. He was considered the god of fire and chaos, hence the fiery hair. Loki had several children, all of whom were kind of weird. One of his children was the 8-legged horse, Sleipnir. Sleipnir could travel any distance and was one of the few animals who could travel between the 9 realms. Loki's other kids were Jormungand. It's a poisonous serpent that was so big that it actually circled the entire world. Hel, who was a half-giantess. Half of her body was blue, half of it was red and meaty like a rotting corpse. Odin was so disgusted when he saw her that he cast her down and she became the ruler of the underworld. She's kind of the Norse equivalent of Hades. And Fenrir. Fenrir was a giant wolf. He is considered the largest threat to the gods. He was such a severe threat, the gods felt that they had to bind him up so that he couldn't escape. So they had the dwarves fashion a chain that was unbreakable. The gods asked Fenrir if they could put the chain around its snout. Fenrir knew that they were acting suspiciously, so he asked one of them to put their hand in his mouth. And if he was unable to break the chain, he would bite their hand off. Of the gods, Tyr, the god of war and justice, volunteered to put his right hand into Fenrir's mouth. When Fenrir couldn't bite the chain, he bit Tyr's hand off. Ow, ow, ow. But then Fenrir was bound until the end of time, which is something that the Norse called Ragnarok, which we will get to. Some other gods in the Norse pantheon were Freya. Freya was the goddess of fertility, love, and also war. Kind of a running theme with the Norse gods. She was well known for having very blonde hair and having a magical necklace called the Necklace of the Brisings, again made by the dwarves. Freya was a member of the Vanir, who were kind of an older group of gods than the Aesir. The two other Vanir were Njord. Njord was the god of wealth, fertility, and the sea, kind of their Poseidon. And Freyr. Freyr was the god of farming and wealth also. His symbol was a boar called Gullinbursti. He was a very popular Norse god. Most Norse were farmers, so most of them held Freyr in very high regard. Another important Norse god was Baldur. Baldur was considered the most handsome and beautiful of all the gods, loved by all. He was kind of the Ken doll of the Norse pantheon. His death, his murder at the hands of his brother Hodur, was considered the first sign of the end of the world in Ragnarok. The final group is a group of gals called the Valkyries. There were 9 of them. They had cool names like Axe-Time, Shieldbreaker, and Wrecker of Plans. Their job was to pick the slain from a battle. They picked out the ones who had died gloriously. Those people who the Valkyries picked, they got a chance to go to Valhalla, which was a sacred place in Asgard, where warriors got the chance to fight all day and feast all night. It was basically their version of heaven. And pretty much the only way to get into heaven was to die gloriously in battle. So it worked kind of like this. I'm a mean Viking. I'm fighting. Oops, I died. Okay, I pick you. Awesome. I got 2 tickets to paradise. Pack your bags, we leave tonight. Ragnarok was the end of time for the Norse. All the events of Ragnarok will be started by this guy, Loki. Once again, the god of fire and mischief. He liked to play tricks on the other gods. Some of them were relatively benign. Some of them were quite mean. Baldur, because he was so loved, his mother Frigg, who was Odin's wife, she got all of the things in the world to swear to never hurt him. But Frigg missed one thing, mistletoe. She thought that it was so small and peaceful that it could never hurt anyone. So mistletoe is the only thing that swore not to hurt Baldur. Loki despised Baldur. Baldur was the popular one. Loki felt he was unpopular. So Loki made an arrow out of mistletoe, and he convinced Baldur's brother, Hodur, to shoot the bow at him. It's one of the things the gods like to do, is to throw things at Baldur and watch them bounce off. The arrow pierced Baldur, killing him. Odin, the god of war, wisdom, and poetry. The gods were very upset about Baldur's death, especially Odin. The first thing he did was convince one of his sons, or make one of his sons, kill Hodur. They all knew that he wasn't responsible, but he had to die anyway, so they killed him. The next thing they did was he took Loki, bad Loki, and he tied Loki up in a cave with a very poisonous snake dripping poison in his mouth, presumably for eternity. Ow. Okay. A while after that, Ragnarok was going to start properly. 3 roosters would crow simultaneously, 1 for the giants, 1 for the gods, 1 in the underworld. All of the forces of evil, all of the giants, all of the monsters of the world, all of the unworthy dead who had been stuck in hell would mount a war against the gods in Asgard. There would be many confrontations during Ragnarok. Fenrir, the giant wolf, who has now escaped his bonds, will fight Odin. It will eat him. One of Odin's sons will then grab Fenrir's mouth. Fenrir was so huge, by the way, that when he charged, his bottom jaw was touching the ground and his upper jaw was touching the sky. One of Odin's sons will run up, grab Fenrir by the mouth, and tear him in half, killing him. Thor will take on Jormungand. Thor will hit Jormungand with his hammer, killing it. but in the process, Jormungand will bite Thor, poisoning him. Thor will take 9 steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then fall over dead. Freya will fight Surt, the king of the fire giants, and Surt will kill her. Freyr will then rise to his sister's defense and also fight Surt. Surt will kill him too. Tyr will fight another monster named Garm. Sorry, I don't have a puppet for this one. They kill each other. There's kind of a lot of that going on in Ragnarok. The situation will finally get so bad that Surt, the king of the fire giants, will decide to set the entire universe on fire, destroying it. Not to worry, this story has a happy ending. Norse mythology was cyclical in nature, meaning that wherever there was an end, there was also a beginning. Baldur and his brother Hodur will rise from the underworld and come back to life. They will create a new world of which they will be the rulers. 2 humans also survive Ragnarok by hiding inside the bark of Yggdrasil, the world tree. They will repopulate Midgard, and a new age will start.
And then, did you want